This meeting's being recorded. Really? It's not against.
Yeah.
I didn't authorize this. What the hell's going on out there?
Count it down in, I don't know, forget how to do
Uh,
this now. I always liked panic getting started. I don't know if we've ever done it before.
you still get nervous about doing this at all? Like, do you get like?
I get worried about, it's this little time we're talking about right here. I get like
Okay. I'll get
jitters. I
them.
don't know. All right,
You
here we go.
jitters. All right. All right.
All right.
All right.
Three, two.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to that blockbuster new release wall of our memory. We grab a copy off the shelf, we pop it in our VCR, and we see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike,
Thank you so much for coming back to us.
and together we're here to help you navigate all those landmines littered down memory lane. So, Mike, there's some big stuff going on in the news lately. We got some information from the White House here in America just this week, where the actor who played a cameo in Home Alone 2 announced that he's going to start a new project for AI, going to fund that. Now that he's got, the backing of the tech community, he's very excited to announce a new project called Stargate.
Stargate. It's not. This isn't Star Wars defense technology from the '80s. This is
No.
Stargate AI.
It's something just as pointless. But what it is, they're going to spend $4 billion in the next 2 or 3 years developing artificial intelligence at the government level, Mike.
Oh boy.
So, we don't have any more natural intelligence, so let's see if artificial will work. But what was interesting, at least for me, it was the name they chose here. That triggered something to your team here at Grumpy Nostalgia. And Mike, always looking for the next big car wreck, said, hey, they mentioned Stargate. Why don't we talk about what we know about Stargate? Of course, that's the epic sci-fi fantasy from 1994 that we thought we'd dust off the shelf and present it for you this week.
This is really one that had a lot of dust on it too, because I had to the AI subject came up this last couple of weeks. I had this memory. This was a memory hold movie for me. It was just like not even like a thought.
Yeah, I saw this in the theater, and we'll kind of discuss this as we talk about the progression of the film. But you could have fooled me. I don't know if I was passed out in a coma, high. I don't know where I was, but that movie made literally no impression on my gray matter. So it was like seeing a brand new movie for the first time, Mike. And
That's right.
yeah, so much to our chagrin. Well, let's just jump in, Mike, because we should get going. This movie's 30 years old. It had its birthday just last year, Mike, and it's not aging well, and neither are we. So let's get started. This was directed by Roland Emmerich, who we know, Mike, from Independence Day and Godzilla, Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah,
The most recent monstrosity, I think, was called Moonfall.
that was a monstrosity.
They're all kind of the same movie. He's one of the first openly gay directors. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
I mean, it's fine if that's who you are.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have many gay friends.
My father's gay.
He's been in the industry for quite some time now. It was written by Dean Devlin, who wrote all the movies that we just mentioned that Roland directed. Also wrote the movie Universal Soldier, Mike, which was not very
Interesting.
well received by the wholeness in the Postman. Remember that?
That's right.
They booed that movie off the screen to watch The Sound of Music instead.
Maybe it was the haircut.
That's the only thing I really agree with that claim with. But there you go. They had a budget of a whopping $55 million, Michael, and it was released on October 28th, 1994.
Goodness. Why don't I remember this movie? This is gonna be a problem.
Yeah, this is the cinematic equivalent of Amnesia.
30 years wasn't that long. I mean,
It
look
wasn't
how
that
well
long
we
ago.
remember Pulp Fiction really well. Oh, I can't remember this.
I remember every scene in Jurassic Park, but
Yeah, that was a year earlier.
didn't really hit home. So,
Hmm.
Mike, why don't you talk about the unforgettable cast that brought this epic to the screen?
Well, it had the timeless trope of a floppy-haired scientist with a hard-nosed military guy. I don't know when this trope started in cinema. It's
Yeah.
been time immemorial, maybe. I don't know. You got to have the rigid, military guy and the kind of clumsy, spacey scientist guy played by James Spader in this one. Who he's one of those actors I've always loved, and
Yeah.
I feel like he was always, just wasn't in enough stuff. Kind of like Daniel Day-Lewis for me. He's like just not in enough things.
I think it's Martin and Lewis. sorry. Sorry. Let's just keep going.
Okay. Yeah, and then you have the military guy who's Kurt Russell,
Yeah.
the chiseled chin himself. Perfect. He plays this colonel who has apparently nothing to live for, but he goes on this mission with our friend James, who plays, this Egyptologist who apparently another trope. He's, his career's going nowhere. He's being laughed at because he has possibly the idea that aliens created the pyramids and maybe actually wrote the hieroglyphics we see today. And
Yeah.
hey, that's a long running TV show on the History Channel. So yeah, must be true. Right?
Ancient aliens, right?
Yeah, must be true. Then you have Jay Davison, who the only way anybody remember this guy is from The Crying Game and a certain scene in The Crying Game that comes near the end.
Hey, homie, I can see your doodle.
He plays kind of a gender bending god of Ra. Is his? He's actually the sun god from
He's Ra.
Egyptian religion. He's an alien, so he's not really God.
Oh, good for you!
And there's some side characters. You got French Stewart, who's playing a role that might surprise you because he's not playing a goofy alien. He's actually a military guy who's in a
Very
somewhat
macho
serious
one, too.
role.
Very gruff, masculine.
That's right.
His first child was a masculine
He's a
child.
masculine guy. You have an Israeli lady playing an Egyptian, so that was interesting. I
Former
don't think
Mrs. David Schwimmer, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. They were in was it Fools Rush In? You had Leon Rippey playing the general. He's one of my favorites because he's actually from this area where I live in, and he was in he was in the Patriots, so he must be a Roland Emmerich, Dean Devlin guy,
Yeah.
But he's from here, and you have one of our Richard K's, Richard Kind, who plays
I actually
a
caught
fellow
that.
a fellow Egyptologist who can't, he's not as smart as James Spader, obviously, and even though he's been working on this project for 2 years.
Why is it every time I see him, I think he should be explaining to Woody Allen about what just happened?
I know exactly right. It's like just that guy, just that face, It's
everywhere.
yeah, and that's pretty much your cast. You have the guy that was in The Mummy, who's actually an Indian, but he's played an Egyptian twice now, and that's all roles I know him from. And pretty much it. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. So it's just some other comments on that cast and the subsequent making of the film. So Kurt Russell balked on this film several times until they kept raising the price tag, and they eventually got up to $7 million because he thought the script was garbage. Wow. But when they offered the $7 million, he goes, well, maybe the script isn't that bad. So he took the role after that. James Spader was cast after Rick Moranis turned it down. He went on to make the Flintstones, Mike, instead of this. So we'll get to that here a little bit. Spader thought the script was terrible, and it was quite a problem. Sometimes he would just go off stage and just kind of pout in his room, and did really want to do the film at some point. And then Kurt Russell went in there and yelled at him and said, get your ass in there.
Oh, nice.
And Spader said, well, the script's terrible. He goes, of course it's terrible. That's why they're giving you so much money to do it. It was easy. You do it for nothing. But he kind of set him straight, and everything else was fine after that.
Sounds like they really got into their roles.
Yeah, because of Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, and they're at, doing Independence Day. I would bet my podcast fortune, Mike, that this role was probably written for Jeff Goldblum, because I think there's a lot of similarity between Jeff Goldblum's character in Independence Day and Spader in this one. But that's just my theory.
But David,
You'd all be dead now if it wasn't my David.
Talked about Jay Davidson coming off the success of The Crying Game. He was a one and done. He only was in that movie, and he wanted to get out of the business immediately. He was a fashion designer assistant, and they really wanted him for this role. And he kept declining, and finally he said he gave them like a nonsensical request for salaries of $1 million, thinking that they would put them off, but they called his bluff and gave him the role. But he never went back to acting after this film.
And I guess they allowed him to wear corsets too. That must have been what a request in his contract.
That was well, there was a request, Mike, oddly enough, but it was only for his nipple rings. He refused to remove his nipple rings.
That's why they had to cover him up. Yeah,
it caused a lot of problems with lighting and costuming and stuff like that. But there you go. You talked about that actor. His name was Eric Avery. You might remember him from The Human that got killed in Planet of the Apes, when the Planet of the Apes kills.
Oh no, that's right.
Good for him. That's nice. Roger Ebert famously hated this movie, and this is the movie that initiated the long running rivalry that he had with Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin. He hated every one of their movies ever made, causing them to wittily call the mayor in Godzilla the bumbling
yeah,
mayor.
right.
They called him Mayor Ebert. Like,
That's right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is what it went back to.
so they showed him. This was a disaster with the test screening audience. It only rated like a 30% likability the first dozen or so showings. Most of that was brought on by Jay Davidson's voice. You notice the final cut it's dubbed over with a fake alien voice, but the original cut had his kind of androgynous, kind of mellow-toned voice, and it wasn't very threatening. And we'll get into that here a little bit more. I don't think they came out of that entirely, but that got test screens a little bit more pleased enough to get it out in there. Famous producer Mario Kassar, Mike, who did the Terminator movies and Rambos and that, he financed the movie Cutthroat Island with the profits from this movie. And I note that only because Cutthroat Island went on to be a $200 million loss, the biggest loss in movie history, Mike. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so it was quite a time back in 1994. That's a lot of money to be thrown around for dumb movies like this. It also goes to say, how many movies there were. That we saw so many movies back in the 90s, Mike, that something like this,
Yeah,
I guess you could just say just got lost in the shuffle.
maybe so. I thought when you said it was October '94, I was thinking, I was like,
kind
well,
of
it's not. It's
dead
kind of
time.
dead, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't have lost it between like some summer blockbusters either. So
Well, that's a good segue, Mike. So let's talk about how dead it was. So in October of 1994, there's roughly about 24 movies that came out. This one and The Specialist were the only ones that managed to make over $20 million during that time. So there was a lot of just kind of very slow, very small movies that came out. In the theaters prior to this, you had movies like Clerks and Pumpkinhead 2, really driving the box office way up. This came out on the 28th, along with the movie Squanto, A Warrior's Tale, Mike. So he did manage to beat that cinematic masterpiece.
hopefully,
Some of the Halloween movies started come out after October. On the next weekend, you had the I'm just going to say dreadful Kenneth Branagh directed Frankenstein,
oh yeah,
featuring, speaking of certain scenes, featuring several full frontal nude scenes of Robert De Niro,
Hey, homie, I can see your doodle.
because that's what everybody wanted, I suppose. Yeah, that was a horrible film. Followed by the next week, you had Interview with the Vampire, which is I think one of the fourth podcast we ever did. We covered that film.
that's right.
And it sure shows. But there you go. For the box office that year, Lion King was the top film in terms of box office. Forrest Gump was number 2, also won the best film Oscar that year. True Lies, The Santa Claus, and The Flintstones. So,
Oh boy,
our
so
buddy
Rick Moranis did make the right.
he saw the way, yeah. So, not much for movies, not a whole lot more on the music scene, Mike. I feel compelled to talk about it a little bit. 1994 music, Mike. The weekend that this movie came out, on the charts you had I'll Make Love to You by Boyz II Men, to which I say no thank you. Turn the Beat Around by Miss Gloria Estefan. Babyface was asking the question, when can I see you?
Again,
Much less aggressive than I'll Make Love to You, I suppose. But there you go. You want to take Babyface home to mom, Mike. The song Don't Turn Around by Ace of Base.
oh
Was a big hit.
ABBA, the next ABBA that never
Yeah.
came to be.
This is coming off their big hit, biggest song of 1994, in fact. I Saw the Sign.
So, yep.
Yeah, so, okay. I'm actually pretty happy I don't remember anything.
I saw the clearance bin sign for them actually.
Yeah, yeah. Some other things going on in 1994 that may be of consequence to no one other than me and Mike. There was no World Series that year because a bunch of millionaires couldn't decide how to split up the millions. Crayola introduced scented crayons, but parents fought back because they were, of course, concerned that the kids would eat them because the kids eat crayons that aren't scented. But they never
So
made
do
it.
certain screenwriters.
Yeah, but there you go. So those never made it to market, sadly. A bunch of films were put in the National Film Registry. You had the movie E.T., Taxi Driver, Snow White, African Queen, and Freaks, Mike.
Shut up, you freak!
The 1920s
Oh,
Freaks
that
movie.
movie's just so disturbing.
Yeah, that doesn't really deserve to be in that company, but whatever. We were all playing Donkey Kong Country on the Sega Genesis, as well as Sonic 3, Mike. Those are the big video games we were all playing.
Oh my god.
When we weren't drinking Arizona iced tea and eating our hot pockets, those are the biggest snacks that year, along with the Viennetta cake. Remember the Viennetta cake, Mike?
No, but my tongue is still burning from the last hot pocket I had.
It's lava hot.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Viennetta cake was a delicious ice cream cake that had like ribbon chocolate. I noticed it has made a small comeback. At least down here in the Southeast, you can get those cakes again. So those are fantastic. So that was 1994. October at least. That was the petri dish that this movie started from, Mike. So we're in the theater. We've got our hot pockets and our Arizona iced teas. Ready to kind of jump in and see what's going on? Let's do.
Let's go. Let's watch The Mummy / Fifth Element.
Well, it's slash a lot of films, and I'll get to that in my criticism. But for now, Mike, why don't you just hit the button? So there's a 1920s Raiders of the Lost Ark ripoff scene here. The movie kind of opens up with a bunch of guys digging in full suits and ties, Mike. I never understood the fashion element of that back in the day. But they're digging out this big tire, pulling it out of the sand, and there's a little Swiss girl named Katerina, whose father is the archaeologist. She picks up a little locket, and then they cut to present day because they tell you it's present day.
She just steals a locket. I mean,
Yeah, she just steals it. Yeah,
It just takes it. Okay, it's yours.
thieving little cretin. But it cuts to present day where our hero, James Spader, is giving a lecture in front of a bunch of scientists and peers, and they start walking out on him when he starts to suggest that the pyramids weren't built by the Egyptians, and
What?
suggesting they were maybe a different source of that.
Was he giving the lecture at the Park Plaza Hotel, or was that where he's being evicted from? I got the jump cut for that was so swift that I couldn't tell what was going on there.
There are thousands of unanswered questions like that.
Okay.
Mike. That is the tamest one, and I still can't answer it.
Oh,
so-
I got 999 more. So
All right.
go ahead.
All right, but so he's embarrassed, and then as he's walking out, the little girl Katerina, as an older woman, approaches him and says, she gives him an invite to an military installation. Says, "I need you to come check this out," and he just does. And it leads him to this,
Military installation in giant letters.
Yeah, exactly. And you notice for some reason, like people in the background are doing push-ups and like hazmat suits for no reason.
Yeah, and there's a guy working on his Jeep.
All right, we're gonna get this to the end, but there you go. So so he goes in there and he's led into the bowels of this military
The
installation.
first 30 minutes of this movie are like, bam, 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 and you're like, wow, and
It's like-
it's thrown at you so fast.
It's like we got some seriously dumb stuff to get to, and there's no time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that I know I'm kind of jumping the gun, but it was my first really criticism of this movie is like, let's get to that damn Stargate. It was like, okay, we got it. Like, can we have some more expositions? I actually wanted to hear more,
just a little, yeah.
a little bit more than just, oh wow, okay, figure that out. Oh, figure that out. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, make haste.
Make haste. Yeah,
So
go
they're
go
all
go.
downstairs, kind of smoking in unventilated areas, and that's where you get the Stargate reveal. And she shows them, here's what we have. And our friend Richard Kind and some other smokeaholics are down there trying to interpret the hieroglyphics. Meanwhile, they introduce a new character here as well. We just introduced the Kurt Russell, where military guys who wear their hats inside the car, Mike,
That's right.
because that's a thing. They go in and ask his brooding wife if he's home, and we understand that his child has been accidentally killed by a gun gun violence, and so he's got nothing to live for. He's actually got a gun on the kid's bed. But I like how they kind of go in and reinforce the exposition in case you couldn't ascertain why he was all
I
upset.
know. I did. Yeah. It's like.
In case you're
That's like-
too dumb to understand that he's looking at his kid's picture in his kid's room with a gun,
Yeah,
he's distraught. Okay, there you go. But there you go. So and they inform him that he's been re-recruited. He put that on.
Justin, it was not only show don't tell, it was show and tell.
Yes, it was. So that show continues when he gets reintroduced on screen with his new haircut, and like the first thing I thought of was Bobby Hill's ventriloquist dummy Chip Block. He looked exactly like him, but just perfectly flat top hair, just amazing. One of the greatest haircuts in movie history. But he gets introduced to James Spader there, and then Spader kind of takes over the mission and solves all the clues within 3 or 4 hours. Completely reinterprets all the stuff, and this is where it starts to get a little sketchy. Like
I know, right? They had, according to what they were saying, they had 7 characters to figure out, and 6 of them tell you where they're going based on like a location in space.
Yeah.
But the 7th character tells you where they're starting from. And all this time, they've been working this for 2 years. They had 6 of the characters on this gate. It's like a wheel of fortune. They spin to the character and it goes into a slot. And they spin to another character, goes in the second slot. And they actually have the line says, well, we've only gotten 6 of them so far. And it's like, wait a minute. All you were missing was one of them? You couldn't just like try out maybe the other characters that you hadn't used on this like dial? And what? They needed James Spader to figure this out?
I think it goes even deeper, Mike, because they didn't even think of 7 points. They only thought of 6. Yet when they go to the little launching device, it's pre-programmed for 7 and it's 7 chevrons. And it's like, maybe we missed something, Mike. I don't know.
I think, you know what? I don't know about you, but it was one of those movies where I kept wondering, like Dune. I'm like wondering, should I have done some reading for this? Like, are they skipping over things? And I felt that way about some of the exposition. Was just like there were parts of it that were like, wait, what? Did something get edited out, or was there a big chunk of the book I'm not missing? You know what I mean?
I think they just wanted to get the movie over with. There's no time for this. Let's just keep going.
You're right.
It's
still over 2 hours.
Like these sheep will pay $6 to see this. They already got their money by the time they worry about this. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, good.
No one's gonna care. They just didn't care, Mike. So they decide, after all that lunacy, they figure they have how to turn on the Stargate, and they just decide to go right through it. They send a probe in there, and then it says, well, 20 minutes later, they're sending a team in, Mike, because James Spader said, I can get you back. And that was
I'll be your Huckleberry.
On his word, they just decided to go.
That's right. He never said how long it would take him. He just said, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. And I started thinking about like when movies care about the scientific part of this, like in Close Encounters, like they had that whole scene where they showed like that team that they've been training for years to make contact, and like how prepared they were, and like what it would really be like versus this, where they like, hey, let's get 6 guys and walk through here because this civilian said he can get us back. Completely unprepared. So they all go through the portal and they get, the Doctor Who wormhole effect, and they end up going to Yuma, Arizona, on the other side of the galaxy, apparently. And it's like they didn't even bring flashlights, Mike. When they get there, they're like lighting flares. They didn't know how much food to bring, but they brought their AKs, Mike, so that's good.
Hey, James Spader brought some Fifth Avenue bars, Yeah,
I'm going to get. Thank you for reminding me of that. I'm going to get to that here in a second. So they get on this desert planet and they see a big pyramid there, and they kind of start investigating. And Spader breaks the news that, hey, I can't send you right back now because I've got to look around, and they weren't prepared for that answer apparently. And so he's ostracized and gets bullied by French Stewart for a while.
They gave him a wedgie and they knocked over his book bag.
Yeah, so as he's collecting his book bag out in the desert, he sees this large
buffalo
camel thing, kind of look like Ginger Baker
a little bit.
But he goes
same
out.
teeth.
He goes out and pets it, and of course there's a loose lasso there, and it drags him for about 50 yards. And as he's getting dragged to his death, there's this rousing score that's just fantastic. I love that. But ends up dragging.
It was like Lawrence of Arabia.
And they drag him to this the local indigenous people. They did their little place there, and he's met by the elders, and he gives them a Fifth Avenue bar. Can you get a Fifth Avenue bar anymore? Are they even made anymore?
Yeah, they're still around. They're still around.
Fantastic candy bar guys. But he eats it. And he calls it Bonnie Way, Mike, which I guess means good or delicious. So
It's ancient Egyptian. I don't know.
it means Bonnie Way. So he's so Bonnie Wayed by it that he invites the team in, and he Spader starts to recognize their dialect as ancient Egyptian. So he's starting to piece some pieces together here. He learns enough broken Egyptian to start having a dialogue with the guys and explaining to him what they're doing. And he finds out they're getting bullied by this neighboring tribe of like Anubis type warriors, like monsters. And he's in the bowels of their libraries looking for history and stuff. And he sees the origin story of Ra, the movie's villain here, and this backstory about he's an alien presence that took over the body of this androgynous kid. And there you go. And cue music. He shows up in a spacecraft over the city. We get to introduce Jay Davidson here as the villain. Not the scariest villain I've ever seen, Mike.
Yeah, when he takes the mask off, it's like, he looks like a little boy.
Oh, isn't he adorable? But adding to the terror were his, minions of like partially clad toddlers. And they admitted that they put the toddlers in there scantily dressed to make the audience feel uncomfortable. So
well, it worked.
Mission accomplished, boys.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have thought about, the plot that diagnostically, but whatever. So the thing here, there's a subplot here where, Kurt Russell is of course he goes through and he's on the trip, and he's got an ulterior motive there, and he's got like a contingency plan, Mike, where he's brought a nuclear bomb through as contingency to blow up this gate just in case something goes crazy, and he starts assembling the bomb, and Ra gets wind of that, and he says he's had issues with Earthlings in the past because he built his civilization using this
outlawed
gate.
writing. Yeah, he got kicked out of Egypt 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, but that's the connection to Egypt, and he's
where he outlawed writing, but
so
he didn't. He decided not to destroy the Stargate on this planet. So.
Yeah, he would keep the mechanism to get him back and forth, but he would throw away the instruction manual.
Yeah.
So there you go. But this indigenous tribe has been under his thumb, under his rule for a long time. He's been oppressing them. And then there you go. So the second act and third act are just more about them finding information how to get home and trying to stay away from Ra. Ra wants to send the bomb back through and blow up Earth. And then, in the interest of time and people's patience, we're just going to kind of cut to the chase. Turns out that they transport the bomb up to his ship, blow him up. Then they suddenly find the magic key to get back to Earth, so the portal opens both ways. That's it.
Yeah. And James Spader decides to stay behind with
he gets the girl with his girl, and they all go back home. There's after this big revolt, and then it's time to wake up because it's time to go home. And
that's right.
That was it.
Plot convenience theater.
Yeah. I did like the sandstorm here. Like mid-movie, we had a big sandstorm.
That's right.
Because you can't be in the desert without a sandstorm.
It was clever that they, Kurt Russell and James Spader showed these people that, they press a button on this mask and this was the most clever part of the movie, was the fact that, Ra's minions were wearing these masks that represented certain gods that we would have seen in Egyptian religion, like Horus or Anubis. And it was really clever. And then they showed him how they were just masks they were, and they press this button, and all of a sudden they look like just regular humans. And that's how they convince all these people that your religion is based on you're just worshiping people.
And I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
All right, come on, you.
That guy made him mad, and I thought, well, what religion do they convert to now? What there? I mean, you saw the reaction when they just saw a necklace that James Spader was wearing. It's like, oh my gosh, what happens to these poor people?
It's obviously Scientology, mate.
It must be, or is it L. Ron Hubbard? I bet Turl comes down in the form of John Travolta.
Right, now we're
I
getting
never-
somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Now we got a sequel.
All right, there we go. Well, so this had a $16 million opening, Mike, which I guess was relatively healthy. Made it $72 million in its domestic run. Did a whopping 197 worldwide. So somebody liked this movie.
Oh. Okay.
Did get any nominations for any notable organizations. It did win some Saturn Awards for Best Sci-Fi, Best Movie, beating out No Escape, Time Cop, Street Fighter, and Star Trek Generations. Crowded field there, Mike.
Yeah.
There is a director's cut, Mike, if you're interested, that offers a whopping 8 more minutes of exposition. Maybe all of our confusion is for those 8 minutes.
That 8 minutes holds a lot of stuff, dude. Wow, it's a lot of heavy lifting in that 8 minutes.
It's an artifact we might want to explore.
That's right.
We'll get to that here as we proceed. Where this kind of really came into the pop culture landscape was the plethora of television shows that came in. This Stargate's franchise is still kicking, and it's still alive and well. You have 7 seasons of Stargate 1 that pick up kind of canon-wise right after the movie. That transitioned into Stargate Atlantis. They had like 5 seasons.
Oh, yeah.
There's something.
The Richard Dean Anderson vehicle, wasn't it?
I guess that's how they're sustainable. You got, Richard Dean.
You got good actors.
Yeah. There's another thing called Stargate Continuum. It's kind of a standalone thing, but still canon. I think the most recent one is Stargate Universe. I think the subtitle of that is enough already. But they're still going.
There's a Stargate video game. You could get a claim.
Yeah,
apparently.
Stargate everywhere. Comic books. Remember all the panels at DragonCon, Mike, on the convention circuit. This is a big thing.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, but not for me. So speaking of us, Mike, let's talk about our feelings about the movie. So this is the part of our podcast. It's kind of the premise is where we go back and review films we watched as younger film fans and review them at that time in our life when we were less cynical and we're open to more movie magic. And then we watch them again as grumpy old jerks and see what changed from our frame of reference. So, Mike, why don't you head us off? Let's talk about the first time you saw this and then the most recent watch and what happened.
What
happened?
It's our fault, man. It's our bad memories.
Yeah.
Started out with saying this was one of those movies that was forgettable, and at least for you and I saw it at a theater, and I never watched it again until today. I didn't even remember how it certain parts of it ended. I remember the weird Jay Davison voice they had in here, and thought that was really off-putting, along with the children. That was really weird.
You gotta assume that all those kids died, right?
Oh yeah, they exploded.
Okay, good.
They didn't. Of course, they didn't show them. They just showed a very angry Ra that turned into his alien form. Then, but again, it's a very good story. I mean, and you can see why it can be converted into a TV show. It's such a neat idea to think of, like this portal.
Yeah, maybe it's better for them so you can actually truss out all the ideas.
Yeah, I mean, in a TV format or like a Netflix series kind of show, maybe been good.
It was kind of like a 2-hour trailer for the television series, I suppose.
So maybe so. But
previously on Stargate,
it just bothered me that they rushed through so much of the actual workings of it. I know, there's a lot of people just want to get on with it. Let's see what this thing does. So 30 minutes in, there you go, you're transported, and there's the rest of it.
Let it play out, Mike. Let it play out.
Let it play out. Yeah, thank you, Charles Pierce. But the hour and a half after that 30 minutes just dragged. I know there was a lot going on, but it still seemed very sluggish and just kind of, okay, get on with it, The first 30 minutes, it had me roped in. I was a little bothered, like I said, that, here comes Professor Jackson, James Spader's character, just solving instantly, like, oh, wow, look at that, it's a constellation.
Yeah.
It's like, how did you not,
he was Gary Stu.
Oh, yeah, he was right there. How did and then the science of it bothered me a little bit, like you were saying. They added, how do they program this computer already to know what he thought instantly? They were like, well, there's a crew of, there's a whole patrol of like 10 guys ready to go. Yeah. And like how did the material they were mining, how would it enhance a nuclear explosion 100-fold? I know it's a silly movie. It really is silly because it is. it's Eric von Daniken's wet dream that like the
Well,
aliens created Egypt and
well, if you'll
pyramids.
remember from Plan 9 from Outer Space, Mike, Selenite, the
Oh
material
yeah.
could blow up the sun. So
Well, if and water, if you watch The Happening, can destroy aliens. But yeah, I
let's
mean
go to a planet covered in it.
it's a movie that like if you're going to go into science and go so deep into it to like literally 28 floors underneath the ground in this military installation, and you're supposed to like believe what they're saying. It's just you start, it gets a little silly towards the end, and like
Yeah.
there's off-putting stuff like like the children around Ra, and it to me, I can see why it's forgettable because of that second half of the movie, and it's just like it really dragged, and even the
Yeah.
little connection that Kurt Russell's supposed to have with this young guy who's supposed to be like his kid. You're thinking, I'm watching it the whole time, thinking, oh yeah, he's going to take him back with him. He's going to take him back with him, and he doesn't. You're like, oh, okay, well
Yeah.
that story went nowhere. Like
Yep.
it was just kind of a mishmash, and it with a story like this, you want it to be more actiony and fun as opposed to like actually analyzing the science. And that's what I found myself finding out that it just
Yeah.
wasn't fun enough to be a good action movie, and it was annoying enough not to be a good science movie. So there you go.
Well, damn, Mike, that's spooky because you basically just read my notes there. So
Oh wow.
I won't go too much farther than that. So I had the same problem. It wasn't the spirit of adventure wasn't here, and it was built to be that, but it just did not deliver in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It wasn't because they weren't trying; it just didn't work, in my humble opinion. Cynicism notwithstanding, I just don't think they put the pacing was really bad, and for all the stuff that was happening, nothing really was happening. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where.
Yeah.
So I had seen this movie in the theater that week it came out, probably one of the first things I'd seen. And I have no single memory of any scene. I know I saw it.
Yeah.
I remember going to see it. I remember Jay being in there, and I remember Spader.
Yeah.
But not one scene triggered any memory. And I'm usually pretty good for at least remembering something about a movie, but I don't. It was bizarre.
I remember just the scene of them first walking into the Stargate and thinking how cool that was. And then, like I said, once they passed the Stargate, it kind of, I don't remember any of that. And
Yeah.
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because there's nothing that resonated with me. It was like a cinematic coma I was in for a while. I just walked out. And the other thing was, this is '94, and this was the height of me coming to terms with being a movie fan, and I knew that this was something I was going to love, enjoy my whole life. And I was probably seeing 45, 60 movies a year, and this was just one that just maybe got lost in the shuffle, or like you said before, but
I'm right there with you. Yeah, like I said, I saw it probably the first week or two it came out in the theater.
yeah, because I just rattled off what was going on in October, and for a 22-year-old kid, there wasn't a whole lot going on, right? So of course you're going to go see something like this, but nothing. And
No. Yeah.
yeah, so one thing I noticed too, again as an older guy, is that how it didn't get copyright infringement for Raiders of the Lost Ark soundtrack. There's Marion's theme is
Oh,
the
the
main. It's exactly the same note for note, and there's some other, and I can't place it because I'm not that talented, but there's some other musical passages.
There's a lot of,
that
like,
sound very similar.
I referenced this earlier. It had a lot of Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
If you ever
Like
seen
that sweeping romantic tune that always went through. I
Yep.
mean, that's note for note something else too. But are you going to nitpick at this level? No, I'm not going
No.
to. But first time I saw it was probably like 2.5 out of 5. This time it was like 1. It was just I remembered why I forgot it. If that's
Wow.
if that's a win, but just pretty much insufferable. Just really just tough to watch, guys.
It was entertaining, but very forgettable for me.
I guess the only good thing was I didn't have to pay Amazon for it. They can't stream it on Amazon because it says it's free on Prime, but you go on this, it's free with an AMC Plus subscription.
Yeah.
Like if you don't want that, there's no way you can rent it. So, and it's not streaming on any reputable service. And like I found it on YouTube, guys. So it's out there on YouTube, free with ads. You want to watch it?
Just make sure you mute your TV every time an ad comes on,
Yeah.
because the volume of the movie is strangely very low.
Yeah, it's a sleep aid, that's for sure. But but archaeological movies like that should be exciting, Mike. And you got pew pew pews and aliens and flying starships and warriors and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But the premise of finding the artifact here that should be enough to like, because that trope has worked a lot in Hollywood, where the whole premise of the movie is finding lost gold or finding the secret treasure or finding some sort of artifact that will end the world or save the world. Mike, those are by default should be very exciting, but this one didn't. So we thought, given that circumstance, for this week's installment of "You Just Made the List, Pal," we take a look at that lost treasure thing, Mike, and let's talk about some instances in Hollywood where finding a movie artifact or something like that is in play, and maybe some good examples, maybe some bad examples of lost treasure in film, Mike. So let's pick two or three. And some honorable mentions you have it, but let's discuss some other things that maybe worked better or were far more comically worse.
Gotcha. I went more for the connection to a portal to another world kind of artifact. So, the first one that came to mind, and maybe there may be one person out there that will get this, and no Justin will get it. So there you go. Justin, this is for you. The monkey from Merlin's Mystical Shop of Wonders.
You son of a bitch! That's the first one on my list because that was my gift to you.
No, this is I beat you to the punch.
Devil's gift.
That's right. You want to bring Satan to your house? have this little monkey in your house. He's the rocket. He's rock and roll Martian. He's a monkey that hits those little symbols, and every time he hits his symbols. Now, keep in mind, this monkey's possessed by Satan. But when he hits the symbols, something bad happens. So, your plant...
all your pets die.
Your plant will die, your goldfish...
A tree will fall on you.
Yeah, your poor golden retriever. And you can't get rid of this monkey. You try to throw him in a trash can, he comes back in the house. You try to sell him at a pawn shop. Your mother buys him and brings him home. It's like, come on. And... it's an artifact you can't get rid of. And
thankfully, Merlin did. He came in and got him, and he puts this thing that's just responsible for all these deaths. Puts them in a little bag. Says, "I'll deal with you later."
one of the creepiest characters of the movie, and his wife. But yes, he You're welcome. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
There you go,
guys. What we're talking about is a horrible TV movie from the '70s called Merlin's Shop of Mystical Wonders, I think.
Yes.
It's basically two little, TV mini movies fused together. And it's Ernest Borgnine is telling these stories to a horrified Fred Savage. Right, Mike? Is it Fred Savage?
No, you're thinking of Princess Bride. It's a ripoff of Princess Bride. It was actually done like in around that 87, 88 time.
Yeah, it wasn't Fred Savage.
It's a Fred Savage look-alike. It's got Ernest Borgnine in a upsettingly tight sweater and retirement home in Boca Raton or something.
The Boca Vista.
Reciting bedtime stories that are really evil.
Yeah. But so that's technically an artifact, Mike. So that's great. So well done. One of my first picks here for famous artifacts in films are the fabled blue diamonds of the lost city of Zinj, Mike, from Congo.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That part of that movie was taking the talking Amy gorilla into the jungle so they could find these diamonds.
That's a good one.
And Joe Don Baker sent his spawn, Bruce.
Oh, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, he spent his
with a Hershey bar.
Bruce Campbell into the dangerous jungle to retrieve these diamonds for his cable company, satellite company. But you get the whole premise of that movie is they go to find these fabled diamonds, and there's mercenaries played by Tim
Curry.
There's
a Romanian accent
by Tim Curry. He wants to get these diamonds for all the wealth associated with them. But of course, they're guarded by a bunch of genetically altered monkeys, Mike. And it doesn't end well. But we're not going to tell you anymore because we want you to listen to our podcast from Congo.
It's a Jimmy Buffett sighting, even.
There's Jimmy Buffett flying a plane here, and he jumps out with no parachute. But that's a great movie. Also a great podcast. And one of the ones we're most proud of, guys. So I think it was show 301 of premiere season 3. So go back and check that one out, guys. For Congo. Blue Diamonds of the Lost City of Zinj, Mike.
Oh,
Mike,
that's good.
what's your next artifact that you're a fan of?
Um, not necessarily afraid, but it's another artifact that could lead you to a different world, and that would be a certain Oldsmobile 88 that is used in Evil Dead 2. That our friend Bruce Campbell, as Ash, takes it to a
Yeah.
world that is in the past, and this is some kind of you're not really necessarily told what it is. It's just old guys in middle aged outfits, and
Yeah.
he descends from the heavens in his car along with his chainsaw and his trusty boom boom stick. And it's one of the greatest entrances to a movie is him coming out of this portal from hell and, finding out that it followed him there. So,
Yeah.
Evil Dead 3 and the classic Sam Raimi Oldsmobile 88
Yeah.
that appears in several movies of his. So,
Yeah, alternately titled Army of Darkness, guys, and that's.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a great pick, Mike. The Necronomicon, Mike.
yeah, I thought about doing that, but I thought the car is more interesting because it's just
That's good. Well, it's called the Book of the Dead, and not to be confused with my second pick, which is also called the Book of the Dead, but it's also called the Golden Book of Amon Ra. This one.
Yeah.
This is from the Mummy. This is the book that they used to read passages to wake up all the evil that they had been trying to hush for the thousands of years, and it was ultimately the book that they used to end it. But Rachel Weisz and Brendan Fraser, our heroes, found the key that went with this book, Mike. And I'm referencing the Wikipedia website here, guys. That's a real thing. You can reference everything from the Mummy through the Wikipedia.
I forgot
The namesake of Brendan Fraser's character here, but another horribly flawed movie that's like this one ended up being more fun, and I think there's parallels between that movie and this one. But this movie never got to be as fun as the Mummy. The Mummy figured out something at least that worked with audiences, but it was about finding this relic that could end the world or save the world, and that drove the plot, and that was enough, and they figured that out. So, the Golden Book of Amon Ra, Mike, is my one from the Mummy series, is my next pick.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All right, bring it home, Mike. Give us your favorite one and maybe a couple honorable mentions if you have them in your bag.
Okay, well, my honorable mentions are more or less movie props that I would like to have or have used or everyone should know about. My first prop that I really want that's a artifact from a movie is E.G. Marshall's toupee from Superman 2 that he wears as the president. That's one of my favorite items from our podcast that I would like to have. Not necessarily a portal anywhere.
Well, it'll get you somewhere.
That's right. Sorry. The briefcase from
Marshall.
Pulp Fiction. That was probably.
Yeah, they never say what's in there too.
You
That's
never know.
great.
It's the biggest mystery box. I think even J.J. Abrams blushes when he thinks about this. The Barbasol can from Jurassic Park. That's a good artifact that I think is it gets unearthed in one of the stupid sequels.
That just sold for $150,000, Mike, as mentioned on our previous Jurassic Park podcasts.
That's right.
I'm really used car sale on our podcast. They aren't.
I know there's a lot of mentions here, and the bunny from Con Air. Put the bunny back in the box. You gotta have stupid rabbit figures into the movie profoundly. So there you go. Your honorable mentions. My third choice though is another portal device, which some people believe in, some people don't. But the Ouija board is used. It's used in a lot of dumb recent movies, but one of the first uses of it and really to a great effect was in The Exorcist.
The only time that's been scary. Legitimately scary. Yeah.
Right. And it's, it's a portal for, a demon or a devil to come through. And it really works with this movie. I think even the author himself, I know it's in the book, but I know that he had experience actually wanting to convey the image that a Ouija board could conjure up demonic activity. And it's enhanced in this movie. It just adds to the creepiness factor. So that's my third choice is a Ouija board.
Very well played, Mike. Thank you. My last pick, I went kind of corny on the other two, but I'm going to kind of bring it in with a real one. And I think the Holy Grail. I don't think you can get better than the Holy Grail, that prop from the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I liked it because they made it just a very basic cup, and they made that part of the plot that that famous scene where they had to choose which one was the Grail, and the guy picked
Yeah.
that.
He chose poorly.
The pretty one that was all gold, and
Mm.
the people that were scientists and knew or archaeologists would say it wouldn't be made out of gold. It was a carpenter's cup. But I like the way they pulled that off, and just the music at the end, and that Templar Guardian at the end just kind of closed the series in a way together was just really great, and just the bittersweet part, the reality that they found the Grail, but they couldn't take it away because it only
Yeah.
worked. It was a humbling and kind of ending to that whole thing, and it was very well played out. So that's one of my favorite archaeological relics. I'd love to have that movie prop. To your point, Mike, that would be fantastic to have on the mantelpiece. But
You want the refrigerator from the Crystal Skull?
no, I'll pass. Thank you. We can
Yeah.
beat that fridge later. But I'm going to couple up some of my that thought with my honorable mention, Mike, which is the Holy Grail from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Which we all know, of course, they never actually got to achieve because in the final scenes of the movie, the cast and crew get arrested by the cops and the film abruptly ends. but prior to that, the 2 hours before that, their search for the Grail was just it had some twists and turns, Mike, and
It did.
it was great. But the Holy Grail, Mike, I don't think I can finish anything better than the Holy Grail. So there you go.
That's perfect.
All right, so I hope Emmerlich and Dean Devlin are listening to us. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're taking furious notes about how to form and craft their next movie based on our, sage advice. All right, but there you go.
Do better.
Be more funny.
Again, when we rag on a particular movie, we feel compelled to say that, guys, there are no bad movies. They're just movies that you don't like, and we want to treat all these movies with the reverence they deserve, good or bad. So just take that away if you like this movie. We're not judging your taste or anything like that. We're just trying to form content for a podcast. And,
Yeah, and this is one of those movies that obviously had a big budget. It was it spawned a lot of stuff
Yeah.
afterwards. So
Yeah.
there was something about it that should be brought up again.
You can let your young kids for their sleepovers can watch this movie without fear of reprisal. It's just, but when they get, complex brains and stuff, they probably won't like it. But until then, they probably, so it serves its purpose, Mike, at least for that.
Exactly.
For sure. So, all right, speaking of serving their purpose, I think we went well past ours about 20 minutes ago, so we should wrap this up. So if you like what you heard today for some reason, don't forget to check us out on Instagram. We're at Grumpy Nostalgia. You can send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. You can check out our YouTube channel if you feel compelled to. No one else does, but we encourage you to check that out. We've got some new videos coming up there. Those are good. Actually getting some traffic, Mike. We're getting some more views now, and more people subscribe, but we're not going to get that yellow plaque on the wall for a while.
It's okay. Just watch Gone in 60 Seconds. That's
Yeah, our
okay.
latest ever, Gone in 60 Seconds. We're very proud of, guys. So check that out. Send us an email or a DM on our Instagram account if you'd like us to cover a film on our YouTube channel. We'd be more than happy to put that out for you. In the coming weeks, look forward to our new side project we're calling Grumpy Nostalgia Remembers Only Edition, just like the jacket, where me and Michael will be discussing some other pop culture topics that we had from our nostalgic upbringings in the 70s and 80s. May not necessarily be tied to movies, but to some other things that were fun to talk about, with at least smaller episodes. But we've got a couple that we've got recorded so far. And we're going to be launching that series very soon, so be on the lookout for that as well. There you go.
Cool.
Mike, that's going to kind of wrap it on my end. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Klaatu Barada.
Yeah, that's right. And the quote of our buddy French Stewart here, what a rush. Oh, cringe. All right, so that's going to do it, guys. So for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time. Not very Bonnie way, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.